Everybody can be like a good investor in a bull market, but how you manage your emotions in like a bear market is when things really count. People want to go for like the next big thing. It's really important to know that there's still a lot of money to be made on our bigger companies. When I first started, dividends did look like something very attractive just because you know that you're kind of guaranteed to get this money, at least if you buy the right dividend paying stocks. I literally got addicted. I probably a little bit unhealthy, like how much I was thinking about stocks. You don't need to actually chase the little stocks and hope to become like some millionaire. You can actually still make a lot of money just going by the companies that we know and love.
Investors, welcome back to another go-round worth of Masters of the Market. This week, I couldn't be more excited to have on with me Katrice Justice, a friend from Blossom. She is absolutely killing it, helping investors, especially young investors, not only learn how to invest, but save in the whole personal finance game. So Katrice, welcome to Masters of the Market. And I want to go ahead and just pass you the first question right off the bat, which is what exactly is your story and how'd you get to where you are today?
So my story in terms of like money started when I was pretty young. So my parents didn't really have the tools to, manage their money properly. So there's just a lot of like little things that I saw growing up, and I just kind of knew like I didn't want that to be part of my story. When I was younger, they couldn't necessarily afford to buy me some of like the more expensive things that my friends had. American Girl dolls were like super popular when I was like 8. My parents obviously couldn't really like buy me those things, but I really wanted them. So I started doing like little side jobs or just helping out around the house and then saved up money. That translated later into me starting like a photography business, saving up for equipment for that, continuing that into my adulthood. And yeah.
Where did investing start to actually play a role? And were you saving a lot more at first and then like you realized you had to start investing, or did it click right off the bat that like investing was going to be the answer?
So I actually had no idea that investing was a thing until I was maybe like 20 or 21. Funny enough, I actually found out about investing through social media with like other people who create content. Full circle moment now, but yeah, I had no idea about investing originally. Pretty much once I found out about investing and started looking into it and started using like the different platforms, like I literally got addicted. I remember for like probably the first year when I started investing, like every day I would come home from work, I'd watch like YouTube videos on stocks, think about what I'm going to do the next day. It was probably a little bit unhealthy, like how much I was thinking about stocks. But yeah, I learned a lot in the process. And yeah.
When you started off, do you recall like how exactly you started off, what you first invested into? Go over a little bit about like how your journey just transformed or evolved rather over time.
So I remember my first investment. So I opened up an account basically on Simple. So I opened up an account on there, and then I think I transferred maybe like $50 or $100 into a TFSA, and the money just sat there for like a little bit because I didn't fully, like I wasn't comfortable to invest it. But I remember just being like on my lunch break one day, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna take a chance and buy my first stock. The company at the time that I was looking at was actually Fuel Cell. I think the shares were like maybe $7 per share or something at that time. So I think I just bought like whatever I had.
And in terms of now where you're sitting with your portfolio and how you go about picking stocks, what would be one or two pieces of key advice for young investors or even for older investors who are just getting started?
So actually continuing on with the story that I just shared, because it relates to that, I remember after that I used to kind of chase different stocks. Like I know a lot of people want to go for like the next big thing, and that's kind of the mentality that I first had, which it did me well at some points. Like for example, Fuel Cell, I think it went up to like $29 and things like that, and there's other stocks that I was like up 300% on. But then the market took a turn maybe like a year or two later, and then I was actually down on a lot of stocks. I did end up selling some of them. But yeah, so I think my biggest lesson is just don't chase like meme stocks or like penny stocks or things like that. I think it's really important to know that there's still a lot of money to be made on our bigger companies. So like even a company like Apple, right now I'm still up like a good 30% on that stock or like 50% on that stock, something like that. So like you don't need to actually chase the little stocks and hope to become like some millionaire. You can actually still make a lot of money just going by the companies that we know and love and that are like, that actually have history.
It's funny you bring that up. Apple is also, like a massive position, was a massive position, remains a massive position in my portfolio. I'm a diehard Apple guy. And I feel like almost every year we hear from shareholders that, oh, Apple is going nowhere fast. It's kind of a thing of the past. People have dumped Apple stock over the years, but Apple's continued to perform very well. So as a lot of investors are looking now for like that needle in the haystack, the newest needle in the haystack. You're here sharing that, I want to say, that older needle is still nonetheless a needle, and it's, as long as those fundamentals, it sounds like, are still great, you can hold on to them. So Katrice, why do you think so many investors try to chase a new needle?
I think a lot of us just probably want to become like a millionaire, something along those lines. Like we want freedom ultimately, and we think like we need to get lucky to have that freedom, which I don't think is entirely true. There's a lot of people that I know who are investing and they live a very comfortable life and they haven't really like dumped money into these stocks, or if they did, it's like a very small portion of those like meme stocks and things like that.
And of course, you're on Blossom, so Katrice's entire portfolio is like wide open for every investor out there watching this to go to Blossom and take a look, like a deep dive on her portfolio. But if you can just give us an overall rundown on your portfolio as it stands right now, like roughly how many stocks are in there, some of your top holdings, or at least the holdings that you're in love with right now, your diehards, your go-tos.
Most of my money is in the S&P 500. So I have an ETF that tracks the S&P 500. That's where I try and keep most of my portfolio. I also have a lot of individual tech stocks that you'll see on my portfolio on Blossom as well. And then I'm also trying to, diversify my portfolio a little bit in terms of like other industries. So I do also have other holdings for that as well.
Do you have a say on, and this is a big one, and there's a feud, a war between like almost income investors and growth investors. And I used to be like a diehard go-to income / dividend guy, but knowing my investor profile, I've really changed over time. So I'm curious to get your stance on being a young investor and going more growth oriented. Is it acceptable for these young investors in their 20s, 30s, even 40s to be into dividends and income? Should they be more focused on growth? What would be your 2 cents there?
I definitely think most young investors should focus on growth, just because although I did mention earlier, like those other stocks are risky and things like that, I do still think we are taking on a risk when we are still investing in companies like Apple. But the thing is, we have times, for whatever reason, our stocks don't perform as well as we think they will in the next 5 years or whatever. We still have time to recover, and I think that's a big thing.
I understand the zest for income, but it really wasn't a necessity. And even when I talk about income now not being a necessity, people get still very hyped up about it. And I'm curious to get your standpoint on like why is it that people are so excited about income now when you can simply go towards the growth? You can wait out a little bit longer before transitioning into income, and I think reap more benefits later. I mean, look at the Buffett way, right? Like Buffett has mounds of cash, and then when he invests it into a dividend-paying stock, it's going to pay him millions, as opposed to what some of us get excited about, which is still points on the board, right? $7 or $20, it's still money, but it's not as exciting because the portfolios just aren't there yet in terms of the size. So like, what's driving this income engine?
I think you're absolutely right. And honestly, at a time way back when I first started, dividends did look like something very attractive, just because you know that you're kind of guaranteed to get this money, at least if you buy the right dividend paying stocks. What has changed my mind over time is really just the fact that, like you were saying, I do want my portfolio to multiply in size. And while I can continue to buy the same stock with the hopes of getting my like 50-cent dividend or dollar dividend, whatever, I think I'll have more growth by buying the stocks that are for growth versus like just buying that same stock that pays a dividend and hoping for an extra 50 cents every time or whatever.
Did you used to go for just strictly dividend stocks or ETFs, or did you have ever a classification for yourself, or do you have one now?
I've never really specifically set up my portfolio for dividends. Like I have dividend paying stocks now, but I've never kind of like made it my main goal or mission. I think overall my journey has always been about growth. I think it's just kind of looked different. Like at the start I was more having that kind of like, I want to be a millionaire mindset. Let me buy these small stocks and whatever, or small cap stocks. And then now I'm more like, I guess, conservative in the way that I have like my money almost like protected in a sense by buying like my ETFs, and then more like a bit of experimentation for the growth side with like the other stocks.
So I want to go back really quick to your childhood, and then we'll fast forward to where you're at today, because I feel like a lot of the times our pasts dictate where we go and how we operate in our day-to-day. And, you know, for you kind of started off sharing that you wanted these American dolls and you couldn't afford them. And that is a little bit of like that pain, right? It's like you kind of need some pain in your life to jolt you forward. Is this something that you feel like your motivation today stems from that? And is it necessary for all of us to have that type of upbringing? Because if I'm honest, I also had a rougher childhood where that fuels me today. And it's a big driver. Would you say it's the same? Would you say that investors can really do this thing? And like you have an impressive portfolio. You've done a heck of a lot over the years to grow it. Would you say that your past and the pain you experienced from your past was like the greatest setup?
Yeah, I definitely think my past has a lot to do with where I am today, just because, like I said, I knew from when I was super young, like, this is not the life that I want for myself. Like, I literally never want to be stressed about money, like, a day in my life. So I knew that pretty early on. And like I said, I've started businesses when I was like a teenager and things like that. So I really do think like, I guess my hyper independence also comes into play here, where like I just kind of know like if I want something, I need to figure out how to get it. And yeah, that also translates into just kind of investing, just because I know like I'm very comfortable where I am now, but I do know that there's more that I want for myself. And then obviously, if I do have children in the future, I want better for them as well.
Katrice, I feel like excuses probably don't do you well, or when you hear them, you probably do what I do, which is like coil back. Like what? So talk to us a little bit about some excuses that you frequently hear, how to navigate around them. I almost want to say like how we can help people quit playing small.
Are we talking like excuses in general or more like in terms of investing?
Both, I feel like, because I almost feel like, and maybe you feel differently, so chime in if you will, but like I almost feel like if someone has an excuse in one area of their life, they're bound to have excuses that ripple into other areas. So for example, like if you need to work out and you're kind of like lazy, chances are your portfolio will like be a reflection of that.
Actually, now that you say that, that's the exact example that I was thinking of. Because, like, I know for me, I started doing Pilates. I know, an expensive whatever hobby that I've started doing. But, like, I've literally gone pretty much every day for the past 4, 6 months, however long it's been. And I did kind of take a second to reflect on that, just because there's people around me who are like, oh, I want to lose weight. Oh, I want to do this. I want to do that. But again, in these 6 months, a lot of them have not moved. They have not done anything to kind of change and work towards that goal. And then there's me who, like I said, I've gone every day, and then I'm also investing. On the other side, they're not investing. They started investing with me when I was investing back in the day, and then they've kind of like fallen off. So I think there is some sort of correlation between like fitness and money and everything like that. Like I find a lot of the people who are investing consistently and regularly like are the people who just know how to get things done and really commit to themselves, commit to their goals and things like that. And then there's kind of like the opposite end where people are more into the making excuses and things like that.
It's a silly question, but like, where does this come from? Where does consistency come from? Is this an ingredient we're like born with? Is it in our blood, or is this developed over time? I have to get your take on that.
That's a good question. I feel like it's a little bit of both, maybe, just because for myself, like I said, I have been doing this consistently for like the last couple months, but at the same time, there's been times where I haven't done anything. Like, especially when it comes to exercise, like that, I'm not 100% like into it like all year round. I'm still working on that. But in terms of investing, that I have been very consistent with. Like I've had automation set up for my paychecks for like years now. So
would you say that was one of your like biggest keys to success, automation? Because I hear a lot of investors. I personally don't automate. I like for some crazy reason being like on top of everything and watching it. I just like to watch the numbers go to account. But I can understand how that's not everybody. Would you say automation has been like one of your top keys to success?
yeah, for sure. I do think it has been a big part of my success, not even just for investing, but even just saving in general. I really like to always kind of make a general plan, figure out like the lowest amount that I can save or invest in whatever, and then just have it automated. I just find it's a lot easier. There's less to think about. But I do hear you on the fact that you like watching the numbers go up and down. I have a friend exactly like that, funny enough. And I used to be a lot more like that back in the day. But I find just as my life has changed and I've gotten busier, I've opened businesses. And if I did kind of stay with that, I guess, rhythm of things, it would have been a lot harder now. And I probably wouldn't have or I would have probably invested less than I have today.
Katrice, something I often speak about is becoming the CEO of your own life. And you've actually said a couple of times now from being a little girl, you've had businesses or you were very entrepreneurial. And then it sounds like that's just honestly like trickled on as you've grown up. So what businesses have you started? What's been your experience in starting those businesses? I also feel like as I'm sharing or asking that question, it comes back to excuses. I was just on the phone like moments ago and a good friend of mine was like telling me she has this idea and she wants to start it. Number one, she doesn't know how, she doesn't know where, and then she's nervous. So curious to get your take on just getting out there in the world to do it, whether it's investing, starting a business, like social media. It's a whole walk of life that we get to walk with, or an energy, if you will. So what's been your experience there, and what types of businesses have you kicked off?
I think I'm on business number 3 right now. So just to kind of backtrack, when I was younger, I helped my mom sell, or this would be business number 4 if I add this in. But so my entrepreneurial journey kind of started back when I was younger. My mom was an Avon representative, and I started helping her sell products for that. So like I would literally go door to door, drop off brochures at people's house, and then I eventually built a clientele of I think like 50 plus people, and that was kind of like my first entrepreneurial thing. After that, or actually still during that time, I started a photography business. I think I was around like 13, 14 at that time. So people would hire me for events. I would go take pictures, and then eventually I also kind of expanded out into more of like a photo booth thing. So like I would have the camera set up, it'd be a backdrop, and then I would also print out people's pictures. So that pretty much carried me through high school. And then I didn't really do anything entrepreneurial while I was in university, but back in 2022, I actually started my business, which is Katrice Justice, and that's pretty much like my finance business. And the reason I actually started this is, funny enough, because of the people like around me, because I just noticed like I was always the one like giving advice, like, okay, save this, invest in that, things like that. And over time, I just realized that like, even though I knew a lot of things, that a lot of people didn't know those same things that I knew. I started seeing people share content online, and then I just decided to jump on board because I figured that I knew pretty much the same things that they knew, and just kind of took it from there. And then lastly, my last business I actually started with my mom about a year ago. It's called MDD Events, and we host different social and dating events here in Ottawa.
Let's say, okay, someone comes to you, Katrice, and they're brand new to investing. They want to start. What would be the first few things that you would share with them? How would you walk them through that process?
Yeah, so one of the first things I'd recommend for them to do is research the different types of accounts. So there's like the RRSP, that's the Registered Retirement Savings Plan. There's the TFSA, Tax-Free Savings Account. There's the new FHSA, First Home Savings Account, all of those. So I'd recommend that they kind of get familiar with those accounts and then figure out which one that they want to open. I would also recommend that they use Wealthsimple, which I'm obviously not sponsored by them or anything, but I will say that I think
Yeah.
part of what also made me I feel like part of what also made me get so into investing is just because Wealthsimple was the first platform that I used, and it's just so like user friendly. Like it was very easy to use. It was very easy to figure out how to buy and sell. And I've used a lot of other platforms over the years, and honestly, it's not the same experience at all. Like I think if I started with any of the other platforms that I've used, it wouldn't have been as appealing to me. I just find that Wealthsimple is the easiest. So yeah, I'd recommend that they do that. And then I'd either recommend that they take on like a managed portfolio while they continue to learn about the market, or if they're feeling more comfortable, then I would dabble into like ETFs.
Building your portfolio, or when someone's asking questions around building their own portfolio, what's the starting point? How would you even recommend people go about picking their investments? Because like, for example, as we speak right now, just a couple of weeks ago, ETFs have now officially surpassed the amount of individual stocks that are out there. So it's a very competitive landscape with ETFs. We already have known this competitive landscape, with which investments to actually buy in terms of companies. So with all of the opportunities to invest, how do you know which ones to invest into, which ones are good for your portfolio, which ones are good for you as an investor?
It's definitely something that's kind of hard to know. Like there is so much out there. There's like a lot of conflicting advice as well. Say another kind of method that I've seen a lot of people use is like the couch potato method, I think it's called. And I know that on that website, they have a bunch of different, I guess, like ETF pairings that people can use. I haven't personally done them myself, but I know that's another good way to kind of like get yourself into the market.
What exactly is the couch potato method?
Oh, you haven't heard of it?
I've never heard of it.
Oh, wow.
But it sounds like a
That's hilarious.
unique method. I was like, it's an interesting one only because, I mean, couch potato method to me almost sounds like you're going to almost invest in something super simple you never have to look into and just sit back on the couch. But I could be totally off.
Yeah, I haven't like looked into it like a lot. At one point, I did kind of start researching it, but I was still completely dabbled in like individual stocks at the time. But I think kind of like the idea behind the couch potato method is really just like maybe 3 or 4 ETFs. Don't quote me, I might be wrong. But I think it's like a mix of like 3 or 4 ETFs. And then within those, they kind of mix it up by like 80% stocks, 20% bonds or whatever. And then they just have different, I guess, pairings for each one depending on like your risk tolerance.
So this begs the question because so many investors, and I'm certainly guilty of doing this early on in my investing career, overloading my portfolio with holdings. I think at one point I had like 40 to 50 holdings. I want to know what your take is on how many holdings an investor should have within their portfolio and if there is, in fact, a right amount.
I think it's hard to say like whether or not there's a right amount. I think it really comes down to like the individual, how much time you're willing to put in. And right now I think my portfolio has maybe 15 to 20 stocks in total. And honestly, I find that it is a little bit much because my friend and I, we talk about investing all the time, and then we'll be talking about like a certain company and I'm like, do I even still own that stock? Like it gets a little bit confusing. So that's also why I'm kind of like, I really am starting to push a lot more of my money into like ETFs just to kind of keep things simple. The more stocks you have, the more work you, I guess, should be doing in a sense, just because you do want to make sure that nothing has really changed with whatever companies that you're buying and things like that.
Why is it, do you think investors, and so many of us do it, overload our portfolios? Is it like you're worried and you want to diversify? Is it that you just, I guess, heard this approach that's like diversification is the best thing ever? But on the other end of that, if you really look into the Wall Street executives who are out there, or professional investors, if that's even a thing I can say, they don't necessarily buy 50, 60, 80 individual stocks. So where does this come from?
I think it's a little bit of like FOMO, fear of missing out. I know, like, especially when I first started, like, you would be buying your stocks and then you hear about this other stock and you're like, oh, I don't want to miss out. What if that one's the next big thing? And then you just kind of like keep adding. So, yeah, I think that's probably what happens to a lot of people.
In your instance, how many stocks did you at one point have? And when you went about trimming your portfolio, how did you know which ones to sell, or that how to go about that process even? Because that's a pretty daunting process. I had to go through it myself. Wasn't fun. So I'm curious to know your thoughts on it and how you did it.
Yeah, so back in the day, I probably had still about like the 20 range, but it was pretty much all of those were individual companies and not like there was no ETFs in sight at that time. But yeah, I pretty much sold like almost everything back then just because I got a little traumatized. I'm not going to lie. I got a little bit traumatized. I stopped investing for like a year, or I think maybe I was still contributing to like a managed portfolio. But in terms of like looking at stocks, I didn't do that for probably like an entire year. Yeah.
What was it that had you traumatized? Was it the market itself? Was it news headlines? Was it something personal?
Yeah, it was more like I think this was like 2021-ish. A lot of, especially like the small cap stocks, a lot of them just took a beating, like a very bad beating. And I was just like, what do I even know about investing at this point? Like, yeah.
So what got you back into it? And today, as you see it now, was that a massive regret, or was that something that you would still stand by and advocate for?
Like, I wouldn't say it was a regret. Like, I think I learned a lot from that experience, and now like I am a little bit more cautious, which maybe that's something too where like most of us should probably start with like paper trading or something like that just to see like how it actually is, which I know a lot of people also say like everybody can be like a good investor in a bull market, but how you manage your emotions in like a bear market is when things really count, which I thought I was holding out strong on like the little red days and whatever when I first started. But like, yeah, like I said, I just completely stopped for like a good year.
So Katrice, on your both your Instagram, which again, she has amazing pages. Her Instagram is one that is incredible, equally to her Blossom page. But you have here helping young Canadians, I want to say helping young investors around the world. We'll throw that one in there. Save, invest, and level up. So first I want to ask you about this whole savings deal. I hear all the time, and I'm sure you hear it too because we're in the same space, that people don't have the money to invest, which is bonkers to me because I feel like everybody can find it. But when someone shares that with you, I don't have the money. What's your response? How do you help those individuals?
So definitely if someone's saying they don't have the money, I think one of the first things they need to do is really like make a budget and look at what you're actually spending your money on. Because a lot of the times there's things we can cut out, even if it's just like subscriptions or like maybe you don't need to buy a coffee every day and you can make it at home instead. Things like that, which I know that's also a little bit
Shoot.
controversial. Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Oh
is
man,
some
it's
people,
earned. It's only once a week, you know.
yeah. That one is a little bit controversial because a lot of people say like, oh, like my $5 a day coffee is not making a difference, but like it can be in a sense, especially like if that's $50 a week, $200 a month, you couldn't be investing that and essentially end up further ahead. So yeah, that's one thing as well.
Is there a time and a place where like the coffee a day, the $5 coffee a day thing is actually okay? Or is it something, because also in like the fire community, right? This is a big one in the fire community. It's like, get rid of everything. Stop living life entirely. I've gotten, and I lived that way for a bit. Today, I like to say I'm living my like quote unquote rich life, but I say it because it's like earned. And do you think there's a point in which it really is earned and you can really relax and take your foot off that gas pedal?
Yeah, honestly, I agree with what you're saying, and I honestly feel like I'm in like a very similar position. I'm doing my investments and whatever, and I'm also like leaving for a trip next week. But I think it's really just partially about priorities and also just figuring out what's important to you. So like, yes, I gave like the coffee and stuff as an example, but like maybe for me and you, we're gonna buy our coffee every day, and like it doesn't matter because we're still investing whatever per month. It's also just dependent on like where you are in life and like also how much you're making. Like maybe income is your actual problem and you need to increase your income. But again, this goes back to you need to have your budget. You need to look at your budget. Maybe your expenses are really just more than your income, and that's without the coffee. So again, that would just be an income problem.
Do you find it hard to have the conversation with the B word, the budget, right? Like I always feel like when you mention, I always call it the B word, right? Because it's like you say budget and people cringe. They don't want to talk about it. Do you feel like society is coming more around to that word and being a little more conscious of where their dollar is spent and how they're saving? Do you think we're still like kind of far off that beaten path?
I think it's improved over the years. I do think it's definitely gotten better. I know for myself, when it comes to a budget, I don't set a budget to like restrict myself in terms of like, oh, I'm only going to spend $100 on groceries, or before people come for me, I'm not going to spend $300 on groceries or whatever because the economy. But like, I don't set a budget to like restrict myself. It's more like I set a budget to know how much I'm getting every month, then pay myself first by allocating to my investments, paying my bills, like my mortgage, things like that. And then whatever's left, like say it's even $1,000 for the month, then I just spend it freely. I don't care if I spend more on groceries versus more on like my personal care products. As long as I'm within that 1,000 across, I guess, my variable expenses, then it's not a problem for me.
People have this spending problem with credit. Do you own a credit card, or do you just stick to like the 1,000? A lot of people will take, I think it's a Dave Ramsey approach. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he's like a big proponent of like just ripping up your credit cards. I think we should have a little bit more self-control, and we should use credit cards. What do you think? What's like the proper approach in your opinion?
Oh my gosh, you mentioned Dave Ramsey, and like I remember he traumatized me in university, which I didn't even remember that until like you said it. But back to your question though, in terms of credit cards, I absolutely love credit cards. I'm not gonna lie, over the years I've accumulated way too many, which I'm literally in the process of doing like a credit card audit, I want to call it, which I'll be posting about. So check out my
Keep your
Instagram.
eyes peeled.
Yeah. But yeah, I absolutely love credit just because not even like for like the borrowing aspect, but just because there's so many perks that you can take advantage of if you're using things the right way. So ever since I turned 18, I'd say like probably 99% of my transactions have been on credit versus debit. But the thing is, like, I'm not just going crazy and buying like a new TV just because my limit is, say, 20,000. I just spend like as I would normally spend as if it was my debit card, and I don't go overboard, and I pay it I can't talk. I pay it pretty frequently.
So where does the mentality come from, in your opinion, that people have this like keeping up with the Joneses thing going for them? Because I never really understood it, to be honest with you. Like I just, like you said, it's like you spend on what you need, and if you don't have it, don't spend it. But some people, I feel like, don't think that way. Where does that come from?
I think a lot of people just, when they get something, they just feel almost like entitled to use it a little bit, or they just feel like they just start to rely on it, which I can't even tell you any of my credit card limits, because that's how much like I don't pay attention to things like that. I really just focus on, okay, do I need this item? Can I afford it? And that's really it. So I think sometimes people get a little bit too into like credit and like borrowing and things like that. Like, oh, I know I have a $10,000 line of credit, so I'm just going to buy this and it's fine, I'll pay it back, and things like that. Me, I'm just very opposite. I really just focus on, okay, this is like what I have.
It's a simplicity, I feel like, to wealth. And a lot of successful investors have that, where you really do question, like, do I really need this? And if I don't really need it, I'm like, I'm probably good without it. And that comes down to mindset, which is another element I wanted to ask you about, because again, whether it's your Instagram or your Blossom page, it says that you're helping investors save, invest, and level up. And so to me, leveling up is really all about a mindset. Talk to us a bit about the money mindset, or if you will, kind of like the wealth mindset that's necessary for all of us to actually get wealthy.
So for me, I really like to kind of have a balance. So while I talk about investing and I love investing and things like that, I also really want to enjoy my life now while I'm still young and able to. So like I said, I'm literally going on a trip next week. So it's really just balancing your money essentially. So like I said, I pay myself first. I make sure that I guess my baseline of what I'm comfortable investing per month is already done, and then whatever's left, that's now what I go and spend and save and whatever. So yeah, I think that's really important as well. And I think a lot of us are kind of in the same place right now where we do want to plan for our future, but we also know like future may not come for us. Like as much as we're talking about it and this is what we hope for, it may not come for us. So I do think it's also very important to still be able to do the things that we want to do now. And I think savings is a great way to do that. Just like setting up a certain amount that you're putting aside every month, and then you can now go book that trip whenever you want to book it.
Living my rich life is what I've been calling it recently. I'm actually doing like the same thing as you. I'm booking a lot of trips. I'm traveling a lot. I'm enjoying, as I feel like where I'm at now is earned. I want to ask you about your trip. I want to ask you some juicy hot seat questions. First of all, where are you going in the world, and what's the vacation look like?
Yes, I'm actually going to Jamaica for a week, and I'll be staying at an all-inclusive resort, which is my favorite because I don't have to think about what to eat. I just show up. Yeah, love it.
Enjoy.
Yeah.
So investors, pack your bags. We're going with her. The second question I have for you, because you said that you'll have money set aside for investing and savings per month. How much money are you actually investing per month? And how much money you think is a good amount for an investor who is not necessarily where you're at these days to be investing?
Yeah, so right now I'm investing about 500 a month, but that also fluctuates depending on like if I get an extra paycheck, or another thing I do is like any extra money that I get, I put that to investing. Or like I used to get like some of the government benefits. They've seemed to have kicked me off, but I used to also invest that. Yeah, I used to also like invest that. Just any extra money I get, just literally put it towards my investments.
And where's like a good magic number for investors to start? Because honestly, you've probably gotten this as well. When you talk to newer investors or people who aren't yet invested in the market, you'll say like, just get started. And they go, well, I don't have X amount, and so therefore I can't, and I'm going to wait until I get, Y amount. What would you say to that? And what's like the magic number to start investing?
Yeah, honestly, I think it really depends on like the individual person, but I find what a lot of people forget is like whether it's saving or investing, again, a little bit goes a long way over time. So like even if it's like you can only afford $20 a week, that's about $80 a month, within like 6 months you're already going to have over $500 there. So like things like that, just like I feel like a little bit of tricking your mind, just setting up small amounts and then just waiting is like a lot of what's worked. And I think that's also another thing that's really worked for me in my journey. Like I'm literally such like a set it and forget it person, especially when it comes to savings. So like I said, every paycheck, these things are automated, and then sometimes I'll just go into my account and I'm like, how did I even get this much? So yeah, I think really just setting up whatever you can afford without like, making your budget be, tight for your other things like your food and whatever. I think just finding an amount that you can consistently invest and not feel restrained for the rest of your budget is like the sweet spot for most of us. And then you can
How
always put any
much?
extra. Yeah.
How much would you say is too much? Like when does it get a little too psycho, and that you're really like constraining yourself to almost non-existence?
Yeah, I know I've seen like you mentioned, so like the fire community, I've seen a lot of people like really cut down to like the absolute bare minimum to the point where like they don't even sound like they're enjoying life. So I think once you kind of get to that point, then yeah, that's probably something needs to be reworked there. But I know, like, for example, you were saying yourself and myself, like, we're at the point where we're still continuing to consistently invest, but like, we're still able to do what we want aside from investing and like go on our trips and things like that. So I think that's kind of like the, a more ideal spot for the most of us, for the majority of us.
Has it always been $500 a month, or have you fluctuated that number throughout the years? And with that, where like ballpark right now is your portfolio?
Wait, sorry, can you say that again?
Yeah, yeah. Has it always been $500 a month? Have you fluctuated that at all? And as we talk right now, ballparking your portfolio, like what's the total value?
Yeah, so it hasn't always been 500 per month. I can't remember what it used to be. I know at one point it was like 200. Over time, I do just try to increase it. But the thing is, also for me, like if I have a lot of money left over at the end of the month, then I'll just send it over to my investments. So, kind of like I was saying earlier, like I never want to feel restrained in any way. Like I'm happy at the kind of like 250 bi-weekly mark. So yeah, I just know that at least that $500 a month or whatever is going there. And then again, if I have any extra, I send it off there. Or like, I'm not gonna lie, I do go to the casino sometimes. So if I do win
You
there,
do
like
enjoy your life.
I don't go often and I don't spend a lot. But like if I do win, then yeah, I probably send at least half towards my investments and things like that. Yeah.
It almost reminds me of that line where it's like, I don't always go gambling, but when I do,
Yeah.
throw it all
For
on the
real, yeah.
line. So, okay, once you put that 250 or the 500 into the market, you have, an assortment of stocks. A big question that I get asked a lot, and I'm curious of your opinion. How do you know how to divvy that up and what positions to put that into? Or do you just pick one and put it all into that one position for that payment?
Yeah, so right now I actually recently just started like I changed it from just an auto deposit to more of like the recurring investments thing. So I just have the 250 recurring investment towards like the S&P 500 ETF. But then I also do still have quite a bit of money sitting in a cash ETF right now, which I'm planning to deploy a lot of that towards the S&P 500 ETF and then still keeping some to watch my individual stocks, which I actually went through them yesterday and I was looking to see like if I feel comfortable adding on more at these levels because a lot of these are at like pretty much all-time highs and I've just kind of decided to wait and not purchase any more individual stocks at the moment besides like other new positions that I may open.
Sure. And so you said you're sitting on some cash. Are you sitting on cash because of where the market is right now, or is that just because you don't really see any of your current positions as opportune times to buy into them?
Yeah, most of my positions aren't the best to add on to right now. Like they're all pretty much at all-time highs and I'm already up on a lot of them. So I'm just kind of waiting to see, even though I know we say don't time the market, but I am a little bit waiting. But I think it's a little bit different when you're doing individual stocks versus like ETFs too. So when it comes to that. But yeah, and also like I'm also still just learning. So I'm trying to take my time. And again, I don't want to be traumatized like I was a few years ago. So I really am just trying to like take my time. And I think that's also okay.
I think it's incredibly important, something that you just shared, which I'll double down on, is that a lot of investors say don't time the market, right? It's all about having time in the market, not timing it. The funny thing is, though, a lot of us do time it. Even though we say it all the time not to time it, we do. You just shared it. I certainly share it from time to time. Is that the proper approach? Like, are we doing our own personal selves a disservice and not following through on such classic, tried and true, tested advice?
I think it depends. Like I was saying, so I feel like for ETFs, if I really do plan on having this ETF for the next 10 years, if I buy now at all-time highs, it really won't make a difference 10 years from now because I'm probably still going to have made money. But individual stocks, I think maybe it's more on the psychological side, just the fact that like if something is at an all-time high, you know it's eventually going to cool down and you might be looking at like a negative 30% and things like that, which a lot of us might panic sell or things like that. So I think, yeah, I think that's a little bit of the difference between ETFs versus individual stocks. I think individual stocks, it's a bit better to make sure it has room to run. And yeah.
Right now, I feel like we're at such a tumultuous time in the market with a lot of different things going on. And a lot of investors, because we are at these all-time highs, are terrified that we're going to get this big crash or at least, some sort of decline in soon. I'm curious to get your thoughts on the market environment right now and whether or not you're scared about investing during these times, or are you embracing it and looking forward to volatile times?
Ooh, I wouldn't say I'm looking forward to volatile times. Like, I kind of hate that, but it really is just, it's part of the journey. And that's also, I think, a little bit of why I don't fully emerge myself and I don't look at my stocks every single day, just because it is a lot on the brain. It's a lot of like, it's very easy to get in your head. But yeah, I think, sorry, I forget your second question.
No, it's just about the market environment, whether or not like these volatile times should be scary for us, or should we just continue to invest?
Yeah, I do think when it comes to again individual stocks, the market is a little bit scarier just because like I said, you might drop by 30% or whatever, but I think on the other hand, like if you're buying an ETF, you won't see like that dramatic of a difference, well at least depending on which ETF you're in, but like for example, like an S&P 500 ETF, like you're probably not going to see like a dramatic decrease like that.
Now, my last question for you, and it's one I did away with, but I'm bringing back because I've had a few requests now from a lot of listeners. Katrice, if I were to give you right now, not $500 that you're typically investing, but $10,000, and I said you had to invest this. So let's say maybe you went gambling, you won 10K, is now in your hands. Where exactly would you invest it? And what's the rationale behind that particular investment? And I will say this, it doesn't even necessarily need to be in the stock market. I'll leave that one up to you.
Okay. So if I did win, funny enough, I actually did win money this week. It wasn't
She
10,000.
did win
But like,
$10,000.
not 10,000, a little less than half than that, or half of that. But yeah, I did
Still
actually
impressive.
send, yeah, I did actually send half of it to my investments. So I did send 2,000. Not gonna lie, it's still just sitting in cash right now, partially because I haven't had time to go in, and that's also why I try to auto invest. But in terms of like what I'm looking at, I am probably just going to put it in an S&P 500 ETF, I think. I'm a little tired of individual stocks. Like while I like them, I just find it's a lot more upkeep, and just right now, just based on everything that I'm doing, like the traveling and just I'm not very like, I guess, stable in terms of like being able to regularly check. I'm just looking for like a chill, yeah, set it and forget it. Like, yeah, I don't want to think too much, basically.
Is it safe to say the couch potato investment strategy?
Almost like a little bit.
So there we go. We come full circle. Investors, Katrice, on with us from Blossom again. Her entire portfolio is up and out there for all of us to dive deeper into. Go to Blossom, check it out. She also has a killer Instagram page. Everything will be linked down there in the pinned comment. So go ahead and follow through on Katrice's pages. I want to thank you personally for joining me on Masters of the Market. And investors, until the next go round of Masters, we will catch you all in the next one.